things, and that's how we have our intuition. I talked with a lady today out of New York City, and when I was talking to her, she kept saying, I'm feeling like that's true. I know that's true. And then she'd say, I can see that. And she was talking with her own intuition. And you can see as you talk, you will say things that that help what's going on. My daughter, she has a very good job currently, but it's very stressful. And she was talking about, whether she should go to another job or stay in the same job. And as she was talking, you could hear her emotions come through. And, when she got done with talking, I said to her, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to go get a different job, because everything you were saying and seeing and feeling in your speech about the job you have now, you really need to go get the other job, because you talked much happier about this other job in this interview. And your older job, it's giving you a lot of anxiety, it's giving you a lot of stress, and it's not you're not in your happy zone, And so what makes us happy is what we should be doing. And she understood that, and she listens to me. So I think she's going to give her 2 weeks and get this new job, because it feels better and the people are happier, and she's going to be happier because she won't have to work so many hours, and it'll be easier on her health. So getting back to intuition, when I was praying for more light and knowledge, especially about what's going on in the world and what we need to do to keep ourselves healthy, one of the big problems we have is we have a lot of viruses that have been mutated and recreated and used to put DNA or RNA into our food or the animals that we eat. And these viruses take and put the DNA in, and they don't remove them, they just leave them there. And so the food actually that gets modified still has the viruses. And by having those viruses in there, they can mutate our DNA. And when I first went to Fairfield, Iowa, I stayed at Jeffrey Smith's house, who is a master at knowing what genetically modified foods are all about. And I was there for 10 days, and he taught me every night about what Monsanto and these different corporations were doing to our food. And that he wrote a book called The Seeds of Deception, and also has a big book called Genetic Roulette, where he talks about these genetic mutations and how it's changing not only our food, but it's altering us, because they're inserting these different genetic modifications in the food, and then it gets in, we eat the food, and those viruses are still there, and they take and insert this stuff in our cells. And it's easier to change animal cells because we don't have a cell membrane. We don't have a cell wall like plants do. Animals have a cell membrane, and it's much easier for a virus to penetrate a cell membrane because cell walls are much thicker and harder, and they're made of cellulose, and they're harder to get into. And so modifying the animals is much easier, and that's why so many of us are getting cancer now, is because these mutations get into our DNA and cause problems. And they cause, there's one of the things they do is they insert these Bt toxins, which are actually toxins that will kill insects. So when you put these into the plants will start producing these toxins that kill the insects that eat them and makes them sick. And so when we eat them, it makes us produce these toxins, and we're actually in the animal realm, which insects are in, and so it causes us harm, and we start killing our own selves off just with these toxins and these Bt toxins. So, and there's over 16 now that are in the different foods, 16 different types of Bt toxins that kill off certain things. And they're inserting antifungal, anti-rust genetics. In fact, one of the latest is, how apples get looking brown after they sit out for a while. They're actually putting a gene in that changes the apple so that it doesn't turn brown and it doesn't look bad. The apple can sit out for days and look fine. Oh, we must have a question.
We have some yes, Doctor, we have some callers here. So why don't we bring them on? So let's bring on first Maggie from Mississippi.
Hi, Maggie. How are you?
Hi. I'm recouping. Had an emergency surgery and had my appendix out. And just got off my 2 weeks of bed rest. And just seeing this. I don't know if she picked up on anything.
Well, appendix, if you go talk to the appendix people, the surgeons, they'll tell you that God put that appendix there so they could make money, because they really don't know the purpose of the appendix. They think it, they call it an appendage, a rudimentary appendage is what they call it, which translated into normal people language means they don't know what it is, and it's there because dogs and cats and the lower species needed this thing, and they have no idea what it does for humans.
That's exactly what my surgeon said.
Yeah, well, I know because I used to remove them. And when people would ask me, what's this for? I'd tell them, well, they teach us in medical school, they don't know. But it can cause you to die if it ruptures, because the infection will go out into what they call the peritoneum, which is the space in between the bowels and all the organs, and it will infect you, and you get peritonitis, you can die. About 50% of the people die that get peritonitis. So in order to save your life, they remove the appendix. But what actually I learned from St. Germain was the appendix was actually a little organ that tests the pH of the stool or the chyme as it moves from the small intestine into the large intestine. So it's actually got a reason for being there, and it controls the ileocecal valve. There's an actual valve there that the anatomists say it doesn't exist, but as energetically it keeps the chyme from moving into the large intestine, the chyme coming down through the jejunum and the duodenum and all the parts of the bowel, and the ileum, which is the distal part of the small bowel, And at that point where it comes into the colon, it tests the pH and makes sure that, you know, when it travels into your colon, the pH isn't too high. Now, as you know, our stomach adds acid to our food to mainly break down proteins and protect us from bad bacteria, parasites, and that sort of stuff. And then it moves into the small intestine, and the pancreas and liver add bile and enzymes, and it's more of a higher pH, so it neutralizes the acidity and makes it more of a neutral pH. And as it moves down through the bowel, when it reaches the ileum and the ileocecal valve where the appendix is, the appendix makes sure that it's not too acidic as it enters into the large intestine. Because as you know, if you get food poisoning, which is bad bacteria making it too acidic in your intestines, you get severe diarrhea. So if you get this acidic chyme, which is the residual of what you've eaten, comes down there, and if the pH is too acidic, you actually get diarrhea and get rid of it out of the colon quite quickly. And this can dehydrate the body. And so the appendix tests the pH. If it's too low, it speeds things up so it moves it through your body faster. And that happens when you get, you know, food poisoning. It'll move it fast through your body. It'll even stimulate you to throw it up if it's too acidic. Because that, you know, when people throw up, man, that stuff coming up and out is always horribly acidic. And so the appendix serves the purpose to keep our bowels normalized and keep the pH normalized. And so when they remove it, you no longer have that ability. And so a lot of people end up getting, you know, constipation, and they don't have as good a bowel movements once their appendix has been removed. And your body can't tell whether or not you're getting, you know, food poisoning or not. I mean, it's quite interesting, the problems it causes. But you can, so what I recommend to people when they get their appendix out is something has caused the bacteria to get too acidic, and then you get this bad bacteria into your appendix and it causes appendicitis. And so the most important thing you can do from now on is take good probiotics. And the reason why is the good probiotics will fight against any bad bacteria that you get in your system. It even fights against bad viruses. It fights against, you know, poisoned food even. And so once you get your appendix out, I recommend to everybody to take a good probiotic. Now, the other thing I tell people about probiotics is, believe it or not, diversity is the best for our body. People will go and they'll buy the same probiotic every month, month after month. And what that does is you specifically put in the good bacteria that are in that one product, and you get an overgrowth of those particular strains. And so that can cause other problems because different bacteria do different things in our digestive system. You know, they can even make vitamin C for us. They make the B vitamins for us. They help us digest our food. And so what I found over the years is it's best to buy a different probiotic every month that you buy a probiotic. And that way you get more diversity, because every company has different strains of bacteria. They're all good, don't get me wrong, they're all good bacteria, but you want to diversify and get all different kinds of good bacteria. And that way your bowels stay healthier because you've got diversity in there. Because there's actually different bacteria that'll fight the bad bacteria. There's different bacteria that'll fight fungus and the bad fungus in your body. And there's actually a good fungus that you can also take and put into your bowels that is actually, you know, most fungus I don't like, but there's certain fungus that is actually helpful with our digestion. And so not only take probiotics after you've had your appendix out, but take a diversity of probiotics. Take a different one. Every time you go to buy one, buy a different brand from a different company. And, you know, this will help out all the companies too, because, you know, sometimes one company has the, you know, the market and everybody's buying their probiotic because everybody says, oh, they're the best. But it's really good to switch up. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does. I really appreciate it. I've been taking probiotics only for about the last, I don't know, I think about 2.5 months or something like that. I don't know how many comes in a box, but the first box I got when my daughter went, they didn't have it. She got me a different kind.
Good,
I
good.
was just lucky there. I'm on my second box, I think. And so, well, third, it might be third box, I don't know. But if I got 2 for 1 the first time, I only got a different kind the second when she went for me.
Good.
So that was an accident, but it was a good accident.
Yes.
I keep losing stuff. I have a bad habit of writing stuff down and losing it. What is the fungus stuff where would I go to get that?
Well, go to your herbalist or your health food store and ask them. One of the ones I like is Saccharomyces boulderae, because and especially after having your appendix out.
Spell it?
Saccharomyces. Boy, you asked me to do something. Boy, I better turn on my computer and look here because it's a hard one to spell. Sarcomyces, Saccharomyces. There's Saccharomyces. Okay, so
That's
SACC, there's 2 C's, SACCHAROMYCES, that's Saccharomyces, boulderae.
M. Okay, I'm at the M.
Okay, MY.
It'll come fast.
CES, and then the Boulardii is BOULARDII, and it's been shown to be very beneficial. BOU, B as in boy, OULRA, it's me, LARDII. BOULARDII. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And that helps keep you from getting that post appendix diarrhea caused by bad bacteria. So, and I would even buy different strains of the Saccharomyces boulderae. Boulardii, I should call it, Boulardii. Yeah, here I didn't even know how to spell it myself, and here I'm supposed to be a specialist in this stuff. So it's kind of a rough one to spell, but it's a good yeast. And there's several others. A lot of people even use the yeast that makes beer, and because that's actually a good yeast. And I can't remember the name of that off the top of my head, but let me see if I
know
can.
what I was talking about that beer yeast.
Yeah, the beer yeast. Oh, let's see, beer yeast. Yeah, it's.
I wonder if it's on the back of my can of beer.
Yes, yes. And there's different varieties of the fermenting yeast. And
So the